just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. From WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network, Friday Jobber on the 20th of July 2018. A little bit of a programming note here. A number of programs we have this weekend. We have Numbers Man, that is our economics program from the macro standpoint here on the Boston Red Network. And an open source report, that is our information technology program, spotlighting open source software and hardware. And of course then we have Boston Red. This is a political program here. And we also have BR on the World. That's our international affairs program. We'll be doing more of that in the next few days. That channel will come live. We did the All-Star game. That should also be on the program All About Sports. Now, All About Sports, we not only look at sports, but we look at the economics of sports. Of sport, I should say. So those are some of the things we're doing. Incidentally, we were added to Spotify. That's a movie that is a music streaming network, and we are there. You can find us also on the iHeart app. There's 800 plus stations there with iHeart Radio, and also on TuneIn, and it's several other networks. Stitcher, there's an app there for Stitcher, so you can get us there, and quite a few people do. We're also on the smart speakers, whether they be from Google or from Amazon, points in between. The smart speakers, they do come in. On YouTube, in the audio version, we're going to expand the YouTube version to include some video. We've been wanting to do that. We just have to have time to do it. So those are some of the programming, I suppose, updates here. And incidentally, next week we'll have the Podcasters Movement Conclave in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Also, while we're making announcements here, Michael Moore's Film Festival in Traverse City, Michigan is on, and let me see if I can find it here. We just concluded the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival down in Oklahoma, and now we are moving to Traverse City and the Traverse City Film Festival. Let me just get the dates in here. That will be July 31st to August 5th. So we have some time for that in Traverse City, Michigan, if you're around the Michigan area there. And congratulations to our friend Diane. She lives in Michigan also. Her son, Jake, has returned from his AmeriCorps duties out on the West Coast. Nonetheless, we move along here. We have our buddies from the University of Virginia, that's at Charlottesville, and when we do their programming, we remember Heather Heyer, and she was murdered by white supremacists in Charlottesville, and we'll not forget that as part of our resistance movement. We firstly want to go to a story out of Virginia. This is an interesting story from the Washington Post. One Corey Stewart, a right-wing politician, born in 1968, and he is chair of the Board of Supervisors of Prince William County in Virginia. He is running for the U.S. Senate against Tim Kaine. But the story goes beyond that. Stewart is one of these termed flame-throwing type characters. He's an anti-immigration advocate, purging of undocumented people. A new law allows the Prince William County Police Department to check immigration status of anyone if they are not suspected of wrongdoing. Additionally, the board directed county staff to cut off public services to undocumented workers, including even drug counseling, elderly services, services to the homeless. Business license. A year later, law was amended to require local law enforcement to arrest people before they could enforce federal immigration law. Stewart said that the crackdown on undocumented people had cut violent crime. He lied there. Evidently, the county has a very large immigrant population. He ran, for lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and he lost out to E.W. Jackson, a right-wing African-American. So some of the things going on there with this Stewart and his career. Now he is in 2016, the Republican convention was withdrawn resources from the Trump campaign to focus on down ballot. Stewart joined the pro-Trump women demonstration from the Republican National Committee. Following the protests, the Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon, a known right-winger, fired Stewart to placate the chair Regis Phillips, Philbus, who is long gone now, who was infuriated by Stewart's action. Days later, the RNC and the Trump campaign announced that they were withdrawing from Virginia after drawing the ire of Stewart, who blasted the decision as a betrayal of the grassroots. So this guy has a very checkered past, no doubt about that. During the campaign, Stewart announced that his campaign would give AR-15 semi-automatic rifles for Christmas to highlight his support for gun rights. He ran against Ed Gillespie, who used to chair the Republican Party. And that race was against Terry McAuliffe. But Terry McAuliffe won the race there in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And he also did not distinguish himself as a politician, not condemning white supremacists who marched in the Unite the Right rally that was in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. And of course, Heber was killed there in Charlottesville. He also supported statues of Lee and Stonewall Jackson. And this guy is not even from Virginia, he's from Minnesota. So it sort of shows you what's going on with this character following a vote in the Virginia House of Delegates to expand Medicaid. That was in February of 2018. Stewart led an event outside of the state capitol where he held up toilet paper, calling Republicans who voted the measure garbage. When asked to clarify his comments, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, Stewart replied, I am suggesting I feel sorry for their wives. Whatever. So in other words, this guy is a very checkered person. He's running against Tim Kaine. He was born in Duluth, Minnesota. He transferred to Georgetown University after a stint at a Minnesota college in Northfield, Minnesota. And he was the first member of his family to graduate from college. That figures. He also graduated from William Mitchell Law School in St. Paul, Minnesota, and afterwards he settled in Virginia. And so that's kind of the story there. His wife's from Sweden, and while spending a year teaching English in Japan. I'm not sure. The couple have 2 sons. But the story we're getting to here is from the Washington Post. Said Senator candidate Corey Stewart said New York Times reporter broke into his aide's apartment. Supposedly, the Stewart has accused New York Times reporter of breaking into the apartment of a campaign aide, saying the far-left media, and the New York Times is not a far-left media, was trying to undermine his campaign against Tim Kaine. Anyway, taking a page, playbook of DJ Trump, Stewart had embraced and emulated, Stewart said in a news release, that the fake news media will stop at nothing to destroy Republicans, and have been working overtime to invent wild stories trying to give an advantage to Tim Kaine. Stewart was referring to reporter Stephanie Saul, a Pulitzer Prize winning, get my pronunciation going here this morning, who went to the Bridgeport apartment of Brian Landrum on Wednesday afternoon. Landrum works part-time for the Stewart campaign and part-time for the Prince William County, where Stewart is, of course, the chair of the board. Landrum was not at home when Saul arrived, but said a house guest discovered a reporter inside his apartment. Saul scribbled down a note to Landrum requesting an interview and quickly left. Stewart and Landrum said Saul broke into his apartment. Spoke to the New York Times, said that the house guest answered the door and Saul left a note without entering the premises. That would be one of the things is unfortunate here. Stephanie Saul should have never went to his apartment by herself. That is just not a very good idea. The note indicated that Saul was looking into whether Landrum had ties to white supremacists, something Landrum denied. Landrum was recently included in a closed group on Facebook used by a group of Jason Kessler, the organizer of last year's deadly white nationalist rally in Charlottesville. Is planning another set of rallies in Charlottesville and in Washington next month. 2 months worth of discussion on the closed group from May and June were posted to the web by a media organization called Unicorn Riot, and in it Landrum appeared to make one comment on May the 17th consisting of foul language period and words anyway. Landrum told the Post that he was added to the Facebook discussion group without his consent. Still, his appearance on Facebook used by Kessler and his associates have revived questions about Stewart and his fascination with extreme fringe of the GOP. He associated with Kessler and later with Paul Nyland, a Wisconsin candidate barred from Twitter for any racist, anti-Semitic posts. A representative from Tim Kaine's campaign asked on Twitter, whether Stewart was going to fire Landrum. Yes, one of course Stewart's current aides continued to coordinate and associate with Jason Kessler in 2018, months after the deadly Unite the Right episode. Landrum lives in a gated Woodbridge complex. He said the door to his apartment was closed, but was not locked because he did not have an extra fab for guests, whom he declined to identify by name. My guest was listening to music, walking out of the bathroom in a small hallway, and turned around after hearing a noise, and turned around and took her earphones off, and saw an older lady standing at the apartment who was turning and getting ready to leave. Landrum, 25, my friend, was freaked out, and the reporter seemed a little guarded. Landrum said his friend and Saul had a brief exchange, but ended with the reporter dashing off a note asking him to call. Landrum was one of 20 Facebook users listed as participants in Kessler's discussion group. I just got added to the group chat all the time. I get the group chats plural. Anyway, that's the story of him. This is a typical remark, he said, and for somebody added to a group without their permission, well, who knows about this character. A checkered past. We brought this up because of the relationship to our friends at Charlottesville. We'll go to them. This is the Crystal Ball, Larry Sabato's shop. We made an editorial decision here. Larry Sabato and company put out two crystal balls this week. One involves a Reuters poll. We'll do this on the week that was. The Center for Politics Ipsos poll. Just half of Americans believe elections are fair and open. So, new national poll shows Americans critical of big money in politics, supportive of disclosure, skeptical of judicial intervention. We had this a long time ago. This is the first in a series of 2 issues of Crystal Ball this week, and of course we're coming out on a Thursday. So anyways, the poll. We'll do the Thursday part, and on the week that was, we'll do the other part. 3 Republican governors face increasingly tough election contests. New ratings in Arizona, Illinois, and Iowa. I didn't know about that. In Arizona, Doug Ducey is the governor there, from like a Republican to lean Republican. And in, let's see, what's the next one here? Kim Reynolds, it says in Iowa. It's now a toss-up in Iowa. And in Illinois, leans Democrat to likely Democrat. This is Bruce Reimers. Should have been defeated a long time ago. There, moved the race, and we just covered that. And this is Crystal Ball gubernatorial ratings. A lot of those ratings out here. Alaska's a toss-up. Nevada's a toss-up. Colorado is a toss-up. They even have Minnesota in a toss-up, and Iowa in toss-up categories. Michigan and Ohio and Florida. Interesting there. And let's see. Safe Republicans, South Dakota, 'Dakota, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Georgia. Yeah, but there's some dynamics in Oklahoma, and we'll get to that later. We'll also move that to tomorrow night also. And let's see what other states here that are... Indiana. Let's see what they're doing in Indiana. Oh, wait a minute. In Illinois, safe Democrat there. The state of Illinois. And some states have no election. I guess we should go through those. Washington State, Montana, North Dakota, Missouri, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and they already had an election in Commonwealth Virginia, North Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, they had an election there, Utah, so some but have not had an election. And we went through the toss-up states and some of the state Republican states according to their ranking: Texas, Alabama, and South Carolina, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Idaho. So these toss-up states are very, very interesting out here, and we'll see where it goes with these toss-ups. Let's see what else we have here. This is Arizona. They are basically Kim Reynolds. She succeeded the governor there, but moved on to, I think, an ambassadorship. She is now seeking a full term. This is this Kim Reynolds person. Branstad. So he moved on, and she is seeking that. She took it over in 2017-18 when the previous governor stepped down, and hopes to win more years in November. Kansas primary is on, and this is another one here, is on August the 7th, the general election. Wait a minute here. When the governor stepped down to this year, amongst that group, I guess this must be, I'm not sure about how they, I see. This is Jeff Collier in Kansas, and Kay Ivey, that is in Alabama. Anyway, they're still having Kansas primaries on the 7th in the general election. Reynolds will face a business person, Fred Herbert. Anyway, let's see what else do we have for these people here. Recent congressional poll, Democratic campaign term found incumbent Young, well, that is out in Alaska, trailing Candy Axney. Well, we always look at internals with great skepticism, the lack of Republican pushback in Alaska free. Well, we'll just see. The Democratic candidate might be ahead in the district. Trump carried by 3.5 points. Statewide races may be more competitive than in 2016. That is quite possible. When the president carried, this is Iowa, that's Iowa 3, I'm sorry about that, against Hillary Clinton. Additional mentioned above, Reynolds is a successful incumbent, a group that has a mixed record of electoral success. Since World War II, the 62 successful incumbents who sought election for governor in that time, 39 went on to win the general election. So some numbers here. So Reynolds is on a ticket in Iowa as a lieutenant governor, not elected separately from governor, has performed worse than those who did have a prior statewide election there. It's a little horse race polling to go in the Hawkeye State. Now, it's probably not much. This is Des Moines Registry poll in January. Reynolds ahead of Hubbard 42 to 37. It's pretty close then. Before the June primary, and as for her job performance numbers, The Morning Consult data from the first quarter show Reynolds has a net positive approval rating of 42 and 35% a disapproval rating. And let's see what here. Suggests she is not easy to beat. Moreover, she has $4 million cash on hand prior to the June primary, while raising a total, let's see here, Hubbard is personally wealthy and has given his campaign millions of dollars while raising a total of $7 million. I think it'll be an interesting campaign. Assuming Hubbard continues to spend his own money at a rate similar to how he did during the primary, Reynolds' cash advantage may shrink and even cease to exist. Well, that's quite possible. Need some candidates like that, and to the end, the Illinois gubernatorial contest. Increasingly uncompetitive, Remus began the 2018 cycle as the most endangered GOP type around in the country, and his position has really only worsened since Remus only narrowly won a re-election in the March primary against Jeannie Ives. Frustration with the incumbent following the primary, the crystal ball shifted its rating in Illinois from toss-up to lean Democrat, and since the primary, even the general election polls have found the B in there, and this is Pritzker, J.B. Pritzker, comfortably ahead of Remus. Pritzker's sister, I guess it was, associated with the Obama administration. Remus 20.1 million to 7.8 million in the second quarter there, and I guess extra zeros in it with a Democratic nominee outspent Remus. Oh, I see. He spent $20 million anyway. And, political space is opened for third-party bid by a state senator named Sam McCann. The Conservative Party's nominated crystal ball typically gives incumbents the benefit of a doubt, but there's been no great news for Remus. Well, Remus was an accident, and his election was a disappointment, and it was to the disorganization of the Democratic Party in Illinois, and particularly in Cook County. A lot of problems have happened in Cook County, machinations there around the mayor, Emanuel, and the destruction of the African American vote there due to several things, primarily the sellouts in the religious community there in Cook County, and various other people that were what you call self-serving operators have caused nothing but problems there. Now, let me look at our time here as we move along. We're doing pretty good, and we don't need to do the sports at this juncture. We got Corey Stewart out of the way. We'll skip over to Los Angeles. The Oath Keepers, that's a right-wing paramilitary organization, broke their promise, bailed on a planned far-right protest at the office in L.A. of Maxine Waters. The Oath Keepers, a far-right government organization of former law enforcement and some law enforcement types, calling Waters' protest a terrorist insider. The Oath Keepers publicized a plan of gathering on Twitter, and they intended to stand up against what they call terrorism. That's a debatable issue there with them. Stand for freedom of speech and association support of ICE and the Border Patrol. Some of their members are in those organizations. But at 1 o'clock, police said the protest site was, authorities had been in contact with the group, and they had decided not to come in order to ensure peace. Well, followers of O.J. Simpson were getting ready there, and there would have been problems. For her part, Waters urged counter-protesters to stay away. She noted that the organization, which at various points over the last decade it formed militias across the country and also had a history of attempting to provoke violence. The Oath Keepers would like nothing more than to inflame racial tension and create an explosive conflict in our community, Waters said in her statement. We didn't stop around 50 counter protesters from arriving outside of her office, and some of the United Union of Roofers, Waterproofers, and Allied Workers Local 36. We're here to defend our community and members of our union against hostile threats of violent organization that is coming into our neighborhood with an agenda that's opposed to our interests. That's from Cliff Smith, the organizer there. A number of protesters remained near the intersection of 102nd Street and Broadway long after police announced these Oath Keeper characters were not showing up. What they are saying in America has never been great to them. This is from a minister here, Q. Jamare maybe. He said about 100 people and spread out along the line of the street at that time. We are here to, we want to be here, and we know that we are coming here. They said they are upholding people's constitutional rights to express themselves. Yet when Trump calls for violence during his campaign, they never went and protested his campaign. No doubt about that. In the age of Trump, Waters has become a bit of a bugbear for the right after she called on citizens to get out and protest members of the Trump administration. This is interesting. If anyone from the Trump cabinet's in a restaurant, well, you go into all that stuff there. And I didn't know Maxine was up there. She's 79 in her 14th term. That means 28 years, but has never been more famous amongst liberals, pointing to bulwark against Trump. She refused to attend his inauguration. A smart move there. And the Kremlin Klan, she called it. So Maxine is moving on. Maxine's been around a very long time, 79 years young. A dozen officers were at the scene by 3:30. Only one squad car remained. Maxine is a good woman for the whole community. As Ed Rice, 65, a business type who owned 5 Popeyes franchises. So that's interesting. This is the LA Times we're looking at here. And this is Benjamin Orkers, I believe. Hope we got his name right there. Anyway, DJ Trump, I guess this is from the LA Times, invites Vladimir Putin to Washington. So I guess VI will show up there. Trump administration wants 400,000 people to leave the U.S. I guess we'll cover this story while we're here. For nearly 3 decades, the U.S. has allowed immigrants from certain countries plagued by civil war and natural disasters to live here until conditions in their homeland improve. Some immigrants enter the country under what is known as a temporary protective status. Every 18 months, the Department of Homeland Security reviews their conditions in the country to see if things have improved. Under Nielsen, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, extended a temporary TPS for roughly 500 immigrants from Somalia. In a rare move by the Trump administration, more than 400,000 people from countries El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Sudan have had their legal protection stripped under the administration and must leave the U.S. within 2.5 years. And ending protection for immigrants under it isn't new. Barack Obama revoked TPS status for the West African countries of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Immigration advocates say the Trump administration has been unusually aggressive, no doubt about that, period. For so many years it's make little sense to compel them to leave, especially if they have U.S.-born children. El Salvador, 262,500 nationals of El Salvador must leave by September of 2019. The Salvadorans are the largest group of immigrants that benefited from the program. They were granted temporary protection in 2001, that's 17 years ago. Over the years, G.W. Bush and the Obama administration extended the status for immigrants from El Salvador, citing drought, poverty, and gang wars. California is home to most from El Salvador, 49,000. Nielsen from Haiti. There are 59,000 Haitian immigrants that under this status. An earthquake there in 2010, Homeland Security revoked their status, citing economic improvements and decline in some things there. Honduras. There are 89,000 Hondurans are set to end in January 2020. Hondurans were granted protection in 1999. Severe floods, etc. there. Nepal. Immigrants from Nepal until 2019 to leave. There are roughly 14,800 of them granted protection after an earthquake. Nicaragua. There are 5,300 immigrants in Nicaragua benefiting. The program is set to expire in January of 2019, granted a temporary status in 1999. Devastation caused by Hurricane Mitch. From the Sudan, there's only 1,040, not very many. Come November, Sudanese immigrants will have their protection stripped, and they've been granted that in 1999. So not very many Sudanese here in the U.S. This report here from the LA Times, Melissa Edenhead, I suppose. So much for pronunciation of her name. And let's see, while we're on the West Coast here, anything else we need to look at before we do the sports? Well, we've done those. Oh, the surge in older homeless people in Los Angeles, a sad situation. Andrea Colucci, long and slow slide in homelessness begin, as it does for many with medical bills. She's 67 years old and has decided to finally transition as a transgender woman. Her insurer balked at paying for her surgery bills, so she put part of it on a credit card. Now 70, Colucci lives in a small white van with no license plate, a broken window, growing up in the San Gabriel Valley. Playing the role of a man was tough, she added, but added that the stigma of homelessness is worse. Homelessness had been beaten up, got nothing and no hope there. Colucci's medical history may be unusual, but she's part of a large group of LA homeless population whose surge took some LA officials off guard. 22% to 5,000 people. These are people 62 and older. The city and county slow to respond. That's not unusual there. There are 3 to 5 people a month falling into homelessness later in life. That's from the Government Relations Director in at the St. Barbara's Senior Services and director of the LA Aging Advocacy Coalition. The mayor there, Mr. Garcetti, launched Purpose Aging LA, and shelters are unsuited for the frail and disabled, and emergency housing is focusing on families going through a rough patch. Interesting. Let's see. Recuperation care facilities have opened. Shelter beds have been set aside for older people. And one shelter refused to take her emotion support a dog. Additional terrifying to the homeless, such as advanced age. That's from LA County Supervisor Cheryl Cacho. Anyway, Coselli said, Coselli, excuse me, she has no regrets about her transition. She once made $1,000 a week working in the printing industry, but her Social Security income is less than it might have been. A methamphetamine habit sent her to prison, interrupting her work career. Unfortunate situation there. $20 million program run by LA Care. Their advertisers on Dodger Baseball Health Plan, a managed care agency, and the LA County Housing for Help. She will receive a rent subsidy, but can't use it where she lives. Has a laundry list of age ailments, no doubt of pulmonary disease. Would prefer senior housing, but she may have to leave the San Gabriel Valley to get it. There's not much on $1,200 a month in those areas. So there you go. LA struggles to help older homeless people. An additional 8,000 people in their mid 50s to early 60s. Somebody 65 here. Larry Wynn, diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Couple was evicted from the Alexander Hotel, one of downtown LA's largest providers of subsidized apartments for the poor and formerly homeless. Larry describes himself as bipolar. He's got all kinds of problems. Lost his income, verification papers, and ignored attempts to resubmit them. An attorney at the hotel said Wayne's missed 3 appointments to resolve the matter. Anyway, this is somebody that obviously has problems. They were found sleeping side by side in a bus bench in Glendale, brought to the Acedia shelter. The Glendale facility is open to residents only overnight. By 7:30 one morning last month, the Waynes were walking hand in hand down San Fernando Road to start their rounds as part of a suburban homeless people, and pointing to a flag in the fall on the Forest Lawn Memorial Park hilltop. Couple stops in McDonald's and knows every Carl Jr., all these places here, and opens early and late. Let's see, other old fast food places that take food stamps. Anyway, last year the state cut off $700 that it had paid him to care for Trish at home, even though he still tends to her daily needs. No home, no payment. Anyway, one mall promenade, Tish points out a stationery shop where she once worked. Most of her jobs were in retail. She is in Facebook contact with some of the women that used to hang out with at Black Angus, with Cool DJ, anyway, whatever that's supposed to be. Let me finish this article up here. And Larry sets Trish at a computer with her games and so forth and so on. Anyway, this is their story, wandering homelessly through suburbia. They're still able to walk around, and she's able to be there. Trish was the one who had early onset Alzheimer's, but she's 55 years old and should not be on the streets. We put this up on our Facebook page so you can peruse it. And let me just see, make sure we don't forget anyone. Wait a minute here. I know this is some of our World Cup story. Anyway, we'll do the sports now. The only game played yesterday was in Chicago, Wrigley Field, and Cardinals and Cubs. Cubs 9-6 in this game. The Cardinals had 15 hits and 3 errors, and the Cubs 13 hits and 1 error. Pedro Stu was the got to save, and Dunsing got to win. And let's look at the standings here. We usually do this on anyway. In the American League East, the Red Sox are on top. The Yankees are 4.5 back. In the American League Central, Cleveland is on top, and the Twins are 7.5 games back after the All-Star break. In the West, the Astros are on top. The Mariners are 5 games back, and Oakland is 8 games back. That could be a race between those three. In the National League, the Philadelphia Phillies, I didn't think I would be saying that, and Atlanta is a half game back, and the Nationals are 5.5 games back. In the Central, the Cubbies finally got on top. The Brewers are 3 games back, and the Cards, whom they are playing, is 8.5 games back. Incidentally, there are a lot of free games this week on NFL. On the Major League Baseball channel. We'll get to that in a minute. The LA Dodgers are on top in the West, and the Diamondbacks are a half game back. This is just anyone could get this. The Rockies are 2 back, and the Giants are 4 back. The only one out of it basically now is the Padres. They are 14.5 games back, but have an interesting situation there. Let me just check here and give you those games from Cubbies. This is the 20th. A lot of free games here. Free games today. Cubbies and Cardinals, Yankees and Mets and Yankees crosstown series there. These are all it's a day game at 2 o'clock. The Yankees and Mets at 7:05. The Padres and Phillies at 7:05. Atlanta and the Nationals 7:05. These are free games, and the Orioles and Toronto at also at 7 o'clock. The Red Sox and Tigers at 7 o'clock, and the Marlins and Rays, Padres and Reds. Cleveland and the Rangers, Dodgers and Brewers. That's in Milwaukee. They're on the road. Twins and Royals in Kansas City. These are all free games. The Giants and Athletics out in Oakland. That'll be a 9:35 game. And the D-backs and Rockies and D-backs, Astros and Angels, and White Sox and Mariners out in Seattle. So these are games. The NLB TV Media Center. Let's look on Saturday. A few more of them on the 21st. Cubs and Cardinals from Wrigley Field. The Mets game, Yankees will continue. Sox and Tigers, and Royals and Brewers, Dodgers and Brewers. I'm sorry, and I guess a day game. There'll be 2 games. Wait a minute. Yeah, 1 o'clock game and a night game with the Cubs And some more games, the Giants and Athletics. That'll be a night game. And the D-backs and the Mariners game will all be at 10 o'clock. So a weekend of free games. Go over to Major League Baseball .tv, and let me see what's on a Sunday. Well, the Orioles in Toronto will be there, the Marlins and Rays. These are free games. And Sox and the Tigers, Padres and Phillies. These are all day games on Sunday. And the Cardinals and Cubs out of Wrigley Field. That's a 2:20 game. We'll be tuned into that one. And into some more of these also. And so they are having free preview games. The idea is to promote up the various games. This will do it for us. Friday Java on the 20th of July 2018. We went from Charlottesville, Virginia and to Los Angeles, and points in between. Covered some very interesting stories here. The plight of homeless people in Los Angeles, immigrants in various places, and what the Obama administration, a lot has come off the West Coast. What we try to do here at WBRN is be as balanced as we can. We use numerous newspapers as our anchors, so to speak, centerpieces. We use the Washington Post. We had some New York Times articles, didn't get those in here. We use the Public News Service. We use the People's World. We use just a lot of papers. Anyway, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on the week that was. Saturday morning, as usual.